Salut coders, this is Pisky here. Welcome back to our channel. Home greetings to those who are joining us for the first time. In this new playlist, we are going to develop Bisky Music, a streaming music application like Spotify, YouTube Music, or SoundCloud. We are going to develop the backend using Spring Boot, and after the completion of this backend development, we shall develop a mobile application with the Flutter. So the purpose of this playlist is to start to build a fully working Spring Boot backend and later on a mobile app. So I walk you through step by step of developing this application, and we are going to use Spring Cloud, and for security we are going to use Kicklock, and we are designing the application using microservices, and also for storage we are going to use Bunnynet, and for scheduling and also tasks like the flow of the application that will be running in background, we are going to use Enflow. So I am going to teach you the real world application development. Even if you are a beginner, maybe you'll be struggled at first, but by the end of this full playlist, you'll be able to develop a real world application. There are several microservices that we are going to develop, and I'm going to show you soon. And by the end of this video, we are going to set up all the microservices and all the environment, and all the microservices will be registering on Discovery Client. And let me show you the architecture that we are going to use. So this is the architecture that you are going to use, and these are the microservices that we are going to create, and we are going to create GitLab repositories for all these microservices. And we are going to have a recommender service which recommends users music based on preferences, and auth service responsible for user registration and management, integration with Kicklock for authentication and authorization, user service for profile management, retrieve user details, update and delete user profiles, and music service, which is going to be the crucial microservice of this application, whereby users will search music, retrieve music, album, artist and playlist details, manage user playlists like creating, updating and delete playlists, and many more features that are going to be in there. And we have task scheduler service responsible for scheduling music or albums, Enflow integration, cron jobs, and we have messaging service responsible for sending messages to users, including both push notifications and emails. All these microservices that I mentioned here, they are going to register on Discovery Service, which is Eureka, and it's going to be also our load balancer. And we have configuration server. So this configuration server will store our application configurations such as database configurations, server ports, and other integration key, the important keys for the application or configuration that are required to run the application. And we're going to be centralized all these configurations. So each application, each microservice that are here, these ones, they are going to have configuration YAMLs registered, stored in the configuration server. And then we are going to have API gateway server, which this one will also register to Eureka, our Discovery service. So if a user is using an application and requests a resource on this microservice, it's responsible to route the request based on the path of the request, and you send it to auth service, user service, music service. So by the end of this tutorial, you'll be able to understand how the routing works, how to use Spring Cloud Gateway. And there are other integrations that we are going to integrate to, which is storage service provider. We are going to use Bunnynet. There are other like S3. So for this one, I'm going to use Bunnynet because it's cheap and it's also suitable for our application to store music. And you see, in terms of security, I can trust Burning.it in terms of security, even the streaming. And we are going to use Keycloak Server for authentication and authorization, and all our users will be stored in the Keycloak Server. And for our microservice, we are going to use a single sign-on to access each microservice. So this microservice, we are going to secure them with Keycloak. So Keycloak is good also on single sign-on. And after we are done with our application deployment, we shall deploy it on production. We shall deploy it on Amazon Web Services. But during the test, we are going to deploy it on Linux server and using Docker. And I will show you each process that you need to deploy all this microservice and how they are going to work in the Docker containers. And I created also class diagrams that we are going to use. So this is going to be our class diagrams of the application. These are the important ones, but we shall add some more class diagrams when developing, but these are the critical ones. So this is for user. I told you about user profile. In user profile, I created a user class, and each user is a gender, date of birth, country ISO2, ID, type, profile, pic image, full name, artist, and language. So, and we are all going to have this artist. And for a user, when creating the application, you either choose to become an artist or a general user. So if you are an artist, you are going to have we are going to have a separate table for artists. And this artist also have list of music and create albums and as a genre. And we also have the class diagram for genre, either pop, dance, or R&B, all those things. So an artist is genre. And also, when users are registering on the application, we must select 3 or 4 genre preferences. So either a person will love 3 genres or 4 genres, but they have to select at least 3 genres. This will assist on our recommendation system of our application. And also a user can choose preference artist. So someone will prefer this kind of artist, this kind of artist. So it depends, and people are different. So by selecting this artist, it helps our recommender service to recommend you the best music for you. And we are going to have a music which is going to be our crucial one. And an artist will create a music, and we upload a song, a video, an audio or a video. So and this music and this application will be more better than that are currently there, because we are going to accommodate videos and audios on this application. That's why I added a type. It's either a video or an audio. So for storage provider, we are going to use Burning.it, as I told you, and Burning.it stores storage ID. It now depends on your provider, so you can use the storage ID to store maybe a path, which is, if S3 is either a key. And the song depends to a genre also, so that's why we created a class diagram for genre. And the length of the song and all search keywords, when someone's searching for a song, we help our algorithm to look for these search keywords. So on other applications, they can call them tags, but we are using search keywords. So and also a scheduler. When we want to schedule a song, maybe you want to release a song a week later on, so we can schedule that song to be released 1 week from today. So that's why we want to make it more different from other applications also. And also we have an album. So A music can be an album, and artist can also has albums, so different albums from the artist. And also an artist has also followers, users who are following this artist. So this information, we are going to have a separate class for that. And all these class diagrams, we are going to transform them to a database table. So they are also database tables, so it will help us to visualize and how the application will look like. So I prefer to design class diagrams because of it's easier now to translate them to tables. And these are the scheduler, so you can schedule a music or album, and the time of scheduling a music or an album. And also user can like music, so you are going to have the separate table for likes. And for favorites, a user can add music into favorites, and also can add also an album into favorites. So we are going to update this one to have also albums. So this is some of the things you can do them later. And also we have the music listener. Each time when you listen to a music, we want to save it into the music listener, and this we can use it maybe for identifying the most frequent music, and you can also get recently played music, and also for history, and also for the algorithm. It will help us to know which type of your music that your favorite. So we are going to use this data for recommendation also, and we are going to store duration. Maybe you played the song and you played it for 1 minute, and you put it in your history. So next time when you want to play it, maybe you can pick it from the 1 minute where you left. So even it's a video, because you are going to also save a music as a video or as audios. So this is going to be our architecture. And now I think it's time to get started by creating our microservices. In this, we are going to use this PowerPoint as our guideline. So in this PowerPoint as our guideline, these are the microservices that we are going to develop, and we are using Spring Initializer. So we are going to use this documentation for setting up our environment right now. And we want to follow this, and these are microservices that we want to create right now. So on dependence and configurations, we want to start with we can start creating this microservice, which is configuration server. So let's start with this configuration server, and these are the application YAMLs that you are going to add. So we need the dependence code configuration server, and we need Netflix Eureka client. So you can open startspring.io, this one, you can visit this one. And for here, we have to choose Maven, and let's use 3.15, which is a stable version. Let's not use these ones. And here, we just say code with Bisq. And for our artifact, this one is going to be a configuration server. And here we just say configuration server. And for the package name, we just say configuration server. Code with Bisq, then configuration.server, and we want to use Java 17. Let's use Java 17 for now, because most of the dependencies are already now on Java 17. Maybe on future we will migrate to Java 21, but for now let's use Java 17. And here we want to add dependence, which is Eureka client, this one. And we want to add another one, which is the config server, this one, which is configuration server. So after doing this, we can say generate. I think everything is okay here. We just click generate. Yeah, so we have created our configuration server. So let's go back to our PowerPoint again. So in our PowerPoint, let's continue. We have done with the configuration server. So these YAMLs, we will add them later. So Let's now focus on just creating this crucial microservice. And these are we can do this later. Let's keep this. We want to create microservice for now. Now we need a API gateway server. Let's create a API gateway server. And I told you we are using a Eureka. So this Eureka client is responsible for registering to the discovery server. So we need this for all this microservice, and we need a Spring Cloud starter gateway. This is going to be a gateway server. So let's create this one. And here we just say gateway server. Gateway server. And for our package, it's going to be comcode with bisq.gateway server. This is our API gateway server. And for the dependency, we don't need a config server now. We need Spring Cloud gateway server. So we just say gateway, Spring Cloud. So we use this one, Spring Cloud routing. I think this one, we use this one as our gateway server, and we click generate again. And the name, this one is going to be, remember our group is the same. Don't change our group. We have created gateway server. So let's go back to our in here and let's look for, we need a discovery server now. And for discovery server, we are now using Eureka server. This is the only dependence that we are supposed to add here. So let's go back there. This one is a discovery service, and we say discovery. And for the package, we just say .discovery service. And we don't need a Eureka discovery client, because this discovery service is where that's where other microservices are going to register. So we need just to add one dependence, which is called discovery server. With this one, Eureka server. So all other microservices are going to register on this one. And we are then click generate. And you can see we are going to develop with the Java. Then let's go back to our and follow this one also. And there are other microservices that you want to create now. And let's open this. We have created the gateway server. We have created configuration server, discovery service. And these are the crucial for Spring Cloud. And these are other services that we want to develop. These are our own application service. So we have recommender service, auth service, user service. So let's start with auth service. So here you just say auth. Here the service doesn't matter. We just say auth service. And on auth service, we want it must register on Eureka client to Eureka server. So we must add a dependent called Eureka client. And the other dependence that we want here, we need Lombok. And the other one, we want to use web, because we are going to create REST services. So let's look to the documentation, other dependence that we think of that we can use. Here, Eureka client, I added it. And we need starter config, where it's going to load application properties from a central server. So, which is config server. So we need a Spring Cloud starter config. . This one, Spring Cloud config. We want to use this one. Let's look for other dependencies, and this is mapstruct. It's just a duplication here. Let's see if we have mapstruct here. This one, it's just for mapping one object to another. No, we don't have mapstruct, so it's okay. We will add it as a dependence from Maven. Then we generate this. So you can see these ones, we need them on our microservices. So all the following application service, we're going to have this dependence because we are going to create a REST APIs. We are going to, they must register on client and they must register on config server. And Lombok is just for annotation when creating our class, when converting our class diagrams into a modules. So we are going to use this Lombok just to add annotation like getters and setters. So let's click generate. So here we want to create user service, as I told you. So I have created these microservices, and all these microservices are now in my download folder. These are the folders. So I want to copy all of them, which is auth, config, discover, service, gateway server, messaging, music, task, and the user. I want to copy them, and I created a folder. Put it in your computer, just create any folder where you remember and add this and paste all this. After pasting this, I want to delete this one that I downloaded. Then I want to unzip all these folders. Let's unzip all of them. So I just double click. Messaging, task scheduler. So let me sort them. Let me put them in a list. I want to show them in a list and sort by type, by kind, right? So I want to delete all these. Let me delete all the zipped one. They are no longer important now. We can delete them. We want to use these ones which are in folders. So I want to open this. I want to open these ones in with IntelliJ, and let me open all these. So to open this, you just open IntelliJ and navigate to the POM XML. So let me open POM XL as a project. So if you have IntelliJ opened or your favorite IDE, for me I use IntelliJ. So if you click your IntelliJ and you can open this, you can select navigate to the folders where you added your dependents. So I have to open all of them, all these microservices, and let me open as a POM XML. So after doing this, all the dependents will be downloaded. If it doesn't download the dependents, you click this Maven icon and you can click this refresh icon. It will download the dependencies, or you can right click here and you say Maven reload project. So let me open others, open. open as a project, configuration server. Let me open others. So right now we have opened our projects. You can see these are the list of the project that we opened, and these are the microservices that we created with Spring Initializer. So right now let's start with the discovery service first. So let's go to discovery service, and in our discovery service we can just refresh to make sure all dependencies are there. Reload the project. So let's navigate to the discovery service application. So for this one to be, it will be running on port 8761. So for discovery service, based on the diagram that I showed you, this one on the architecture, the discovery service, this is the discovery service, or the microservice are going to register on this one. So we need to start this service also. Let's start the service first. So for it to work, we need to add an annotation code at Eureka server. So it's differentiating from other microservices. So in our application properties, let's change this to application YAML refactor. I prefer application YAML is not application.properties. So in our application YAML, we need to add this configuration, and the application will run at port 8761. And for a client, we don't want it to register as a client. So let's run the application. So the application is started at port 8761. So in here, we just say localhost 8761 and you press enter. You can see this is going to be our discovery server, and other applications we are going to register here. As you can see right now, no instance are available on this. So okay, let's set up a config server first. Let's set up a config server. So this is how we are going to run your application even when you are testing. So just follow these steps. So far no instance has been registered. So let's go to the config server, and we need to set up the config server. So in our configuration server here, let's open the resources, and here change it. Remember, I prefer YAML, so let's remove the dot properties to YAML. And this is going to be our configuration server. So what you want to do, we need to, let's go to our starter document. So for configuration server, these are the dependencies, and these are the application YAML. So the application will run on the port, on this port quad 8. So let's copy these configurations and add them in the application YAML. So we need to create a folder called configuration repo in our home directory from your user. So if you are using Windows, make sure here you put 3 slashes here for Windows. But for Unix, you put 2 slashes here. So on your user, you have to create a folder called configuration repo. So let me go and create this folder. In here, I want to create a new folder. In this folder, I will call it configuration repo. So I have created this folder in my user, which is called configuration repo. This is the folder that I created in my user, configuration repo. So what you want to do, we need to create a Let's continue. Based on what we have here, let's come. This is the configuration server, so it means we can start our configuration server. But before we do that, we need to create our YAML files. For each service we have auth service, so we must create an auth service YAML file and user service YAML file, music service YAML file. All these YAML files must be added into our application YAMLs. So what I want to do, I want to create this auth service YAML. So I have to go to make it simple, I have to go to Windows, and in the auth service I will just do this. I want to convert this one, refactor, rename to YAML, and I want to have a duplicate of this class, and I will call it auth YAML, auth service. This is the auth service. So for each microservice, it's going to have the name, or like auth service YAML file. So this one is the auth service YAML file. So let's go here and copy what is in. So for auth service, I'm going to copy this. Let's copy this. These are the common configurations that we are going to have on each microservice. So for music service, you are going to specify a different port here, and for the path, this one is an auth. It's an auth. That's why you say context path auth. It's so our Spring Cloud gateway, it will route to this service, because if a request is this path, it will route to auth service. This is the authentication. These configurations are for security and key clock. So for now, let's just don't think about these configurations. So what we are more interested are these. Each service must have a port and must have a path. These are for security, but just keep them. We are going to use them later. So for this auth service YAML, I think we are okay. We just copy this auth service, and we can come to our configuration repo, and we can paste this file. So after adding this to our configuration, what you can do, you can delete this. It's no longer needed in the application. Then in our application, we must add the configuration for Spring Cloud, so that it will go and look for this in the configuration server. In our auth service, we need to add these configurations, and application name is going to be auth service. This is the one that is going to register on Eureka Discovery server. And this one, this is for, you can see we are using Spring Cloud config, and the name will be auth server. So when we run our auth service, when we run our config server, you can see we added this file called auth service, and this one is going to be picked with the auth service. So it will load this application YAML in this with these configurations. So before we run this, we need to add these. We need to push. If you go to our config server, let's go to our config server. In our configuration server, you can see we are using Spring Cloud config server, and we are using a Git. So this URI, these configuration servers must be stored into a Git folder, into a Git repository. So we need to push this directory, this one, into a Git, into our Git. So before I do that, let me just open that folder. Open. This is the configuration repo. Let me open this folder. Let's trust this. You can see this YAML, we must push it into our Git repository. So let's push it into our Git repository. So we must first create our Git repository. So in our backend, in this subdirectory, I have created these microservices, and you can see we are going to push our code into these micros in these repositories. So we need our new one called configuration files. So this one, it's going to be configuration files, and it is there in the Bisky music configuration, and I will make it public and no readme, and I can create this one. So you can see I have pushed it, this one, into the main branch. I have pushed it here, and you can see we have the auth service YAML. So this is going to be our configuration file. So we are going to put them here. We have run our config server, and you can see our config server is running, and it's registered to discovery server with this name, which is with this name config server. So let's go here in the Eureka and let's reload. You can see we have one instance which is config server, so everything's okay here. So if we check if our application YAML is loaded correctly, we have to type this. So let's go to our application configuration, application YAML, and add a configuration server. We must enable a config server. We need to enable this, as to me it annotate that this is a configuration server, like what we did on the Eureka, on the discovery service. We enable a discovery server. So let's run the application. So after doing that, we need to enter this URL, and you press enter. You can see you have we have to run this URL localhost quad 8, the auth service, which is the name which is in our configuration repo, and then the auth service, and here it's just a profile. You can just say default. You can see now it loads this configuration from our, these are the configuration which we have pushed, and this also are the files which is in this folder. So if we add another one called music, let me do this. Let me go to the configs repository, and we can duplicate this, copy, paste, and this one is going to be a music service. Remember, don't ask me again. And this one will be maybe at 70 40, and the path for that is going to be music, and I don't think for music we need this. And these are the configuration for the music. So for the music, we just say git commit, and you say add music YAML, and you can push this. Then if you come here, if you just say music here and do this, you can see these are the few configuration for the music application. You can see it is on port 7040, and the path for that, it's music. So we need to add, for other microservices, we need to add this configuration user etc. User service, and for user we can run it maybe on different port, which is 7020, and the path will be going to be user copy, and the other one is messaging. and the other is task scheduler. Then I can add this. So I have added all these microservices, all this YAML for each microservice that we are going to use. So here we are okay, and we can close all tabs and we can. So now let's go to the auth service, this one. And in our auth service, remember, it's going to load all this application. It's going to load the config for auth service, which is in config server. And we tested that with this URL that the auth for auth service, it's working, this one. So the application, it will load this configuration for the auth service, and it will be running on port 7090. So let's run this. As you can see it's running on port 7090. It's loaded that from the config server, and everything is working fine. If you open the config server, I didn't show you. If you go to the config server, you can see it loaded the auth service YAML file from this config server. If you come here to the auth service, it's because of this configuration. So on Spring Cloud, it's loading this one from our local directory. So if you go to the Eureka client, you can see now we have config server registered, we have auth service. So if you open our diagram for application, you can see we have this one, which is discovery service, and we have the configuration server, which is running here, and here we have the authentication service and other service like user. We are going to register also on this discovery service. So before I run other service, let me just let us configure Spring Cloud Gateway. So in our Spring Cloud Gateway, let's open the gateway server, which is this one. In our gateway server, let's open the resources here. Let's rename this. Refactor, rename. YAML. So we need to add the routes for this, but I want to do the same. Let's go to the auth service. Let's reference like this auth service, and I want to copy this configurations window and go to the discovery service, gateway server, and here I will just say gateway server. Then we need to create this also. Let's come here into our configuration repo. Let's copy. We need to copy this one and paste, and this one is going to be a gateway. a gateway server YAML file, and you can add this configuration. So for a gateway, if you go to our documentation, we can look for the configurations for the gateway server. Okay, for the gateway server, we need to copy these configurations. So let's just copy this. Then let's replace this gateway server. As you can see here, it has few configurations that are in here, and these configurations, the port where it's going to run, so I want it to run on port 77000, and the app on the discovery server, I want it to register with the name API gateway, and this auth service is the route for the auth service. So on load balancer, when a request comes into this service, it will be routed to the URL that is on load balancer. So the load balancer will provide with the IP address where the auth service is running. So LB means load balancer and routes it to the auth service. So if you go to the here, you can see this name, which is auth service, and that is the name that is in here. And we are looking for the URL with the prefix auth. So everything with maybe a domain /auth **, it will be routed to here. For other routes like user, it will route to user service, and here we just say user. So we can do this also. We have music, and you to register with music service, and here you just say music. This is the route for the music. Let's look for other one. We have recommender, user, music, messaging, and task scheduler. Let's configure these routes. Messaging, and here it's going to be messaging. So the URL must have messaging for it to be routed to the messaging service. And here we have task scheduler. And also the URL will be task scheduler. So the request will be forwarded to the service register on discovery server with this. So after doing this, let me commit this. I can just say add gateway server YAML. So if I come here to this URL which I showed you, we want to check if the URL is properly, the application are being loaded. It's gateway, no, it's supposed to be gateway server. It's a gateway server here. Sorry, I wrote the name, invalid name. So here it's going to be gateway server. You can see these are going to be our configurations. So we need to configure this on our gateway server. So let's go to our gateway server. This is our gateway server. In our gateway server, we need to load this one on the Spring Cloud. So let's make sure if we added that dependency, which is the Spring Cloud, we didn't add the config to load to look for these properties. These properties must be fetched on the cloud Spring Cloud server, but the dependency is not there. So if you try to run the application, it will just run, but we are going to have it's supposed to run on the port 8080, of which is not the correct port that you configured. You see, it's running on the port 8080 by default. If you don't specify the port here and it doesn't find the configuration file, it will run on port 8080. So we need to configure. So this one must be put from the config server, so that it must run on this port that we specified, which is 7000. So let's just copy here from the auth and go to the POM file, and we need a config, Spring Cloud starter config. We need to add this config only, and we can come into our gateway server. So we need to add this, and let's sync the dependencies. So this is the dependency for Spring Cloud config client. So if I run this now, it will load on that port, which is 7000. So it's now working. So this port is already in use. I think we must not use this port. So let me go to configuration repo, and I want to change this port so that it won't conflict with others. Okay, and I can say, let me put it to 9067. I just say update. So maybe it's conflicting with the other ports that are in the system. So let's go to the gateway server, and I want to run the application. It's now running on port 9067, so we don't have any issue now. So if you go to the discovery on Eureka server, you can see we now have the API gateway, the config server, the auth server. So based on our diagram, we are now completing our Spring Cloud. So we now have the configuration server, where we are loading application properties like the server ports. And discovery server, we are looking that each service, are they registered into this discovery service. And we have the Spring Cloud gateway. Right now you can see this Spring Cloud gateway is the one that we just configured. All the routes will go through this. If on your mobile app, if you hit an endpoint, it will go through here and route it to the designated microservice. So the next thing, let's add the configuration for user service, music service, and task scheduler, and we'll be done. So let's go to the auth. So we want to use auth as a reference because we added many things in the auth. So for this, we just copy this YAML, copy, and let's open the music service. In the music service, and we can go to the resources. So I think we have to paste this application, and let's delete the properties, this one. And here we just say it's a music, so we just say music service, and we can run this. And you can see it's running on port 7040, which is the one that we added in our configuration repo. Let's open the music service, this one. So we are okay with this one. So let's copy also. Let's go to the task scheduler. Let's add this. Let's delete this. And here it's going to be task. And here it's going, let's run the application now. And I have to copy this here more also. So the name of this one here, it's run on default port 8080. It means our configuration here is not okay. So what you want to do, let me remove the, let's see what's the name that we have for our task scheduler service. As I can see here, we can just do this. It is using this name. Let me run this. You can see it's running on port 7005. It's now working. It's no longer running with the port 8080. So it means everything is working fine. So let's copy this. Let's go to the user service. User service. This one. And this one is going to be user service. And let's run this. You can see it's running on port 7020. So these are the ports that we configured. So let's run this and see if all services are now running. You can see right now we have auth server, scheduler service, music server, service, config server, auth service, API gateway, and based on our diagram, all these services are now running. We don't have also a recommender service, which is the one that we are going to develop later with Python, but all other services are now working as expected. So this was the setup of our project, and we have followed this architecture to come up with this design to configure Spring Cloud of our service. I hope you understand how to configure this Spring Cloud, and we went through step by step, and I prepared a documentation. And based on the next video, so we have also this class diagram. So far we haven't implemented the classes, and we haven't set up for the database connection.